Right, I think this is better. Alright, so let me start again. This is my video diary, and of late I've been thinking that it is important for me to connect and clear my thought process. Having staying here in London, it has often been difficult for me to voice exactly what I'm thinking because the opportunities to have extended conversations with peers and people is often limited. This has led me to keep a lot of misconceptions and thought processes within my own mind, and this might be a suboptimal solution since, you know, dialogue has to be engaging and critical, because I might continue to live with misconceptions without really being challenged on them, and that is a possibility, or that is an eventuality that I'm trying to avoid through this video diary. Hopefully I can be more thorough with this, but one thing I'd like to discuss today is just what has been on my mind. There's a few things going with me right now. I'm in the middle of my PhD application cycles. I have the first deadlines on Sunday, which is December 1st. I have taken a sort of risky position this time, which again is perhaps a result of my own hubris, which states that, I am a good candidate for a top 10 PhD in the US. To give you a bit of background, while deciding what I want to do next with my life, I have often felt that there is one thing that I definitely don't want to do, which is join the bureaucracy. However, of late, because of my libertarian thinking, I have also been able to reconcile the option that, perhaps the state of India today requires some state intervention to limit state intervention. The American counterpart of this could be Doge, right? So Vivek Ramaswamy or Elon Musk, not really government people, but sometimes you require a government intervention to try and say that this is perhaps a suboptimal solution. In that regard, I have been sort of uncertain about what is next for me. I'm here at the LSE and I'm completing my MSc in economics come June 2025 if all goes well. So looking ahead, I really have the options of maybe doing a PhD this cycle if I get admission, or applying for a pre-doc and applying next cycle for a PhD, trying to get into a good job. And I feel like having given up a 12 or 13 lakh rupees job, which would have, incremented at some level since I've been here at Bain Capability Network, I would like to have at least the same, if not more, in terms of purchasing power parity. This was definitely a concern when I was coming to the LSE, because median earnings here are also 45,000 or starting salaries, which if you really account for PPP is almost a real wage cut if you compare it with the Indian salaries that I would be drawing. Secondly, there is a concern with my mind that the course choices that I have done may not set me up for the best amount of success. Again, perhaps due to my hubris, I do not want this to materialize. For instance, I believe that had I got a few more marks, almost 1 mark if I'm not wrong more in my class 12 exams, I could have gone to SRCC. Whether I would have actually gone is a separate thing, that counterfactual we will never know. But I could have gone to the SRCC and sat for placements which would be much, much more lucrative than the ones that I had. Given what my peers in the SRCC have done, it is unlikely, at least in my mind, that I would not have got similarly lucrative placements. For instance, my partner at JSW, who went to St. Stephen's, got about a 23, 24 or higher lakh per annum salary because he went to Boston Consulting Group, BCG, if I'm not wrong. And others from the SRCC have also gone on to do quite well. Well, the placement that I got was by no means bad, but it was about 11 or 12 lakhs per annum. So clearly we were playing in different leagues. And what was worse is that I was not even eligible to apply for the kinds of positions that my peers were being interviewed for, simply because they did not want to cross the street and come to Hindu College. Well, in part of that, well, not really, but in hindsight, I would also want my decision to come to the LSE to be counterweighed or to be put up against my counterfactual decision of maybe writing the CAT and going for an MBA, or writing the GMAT and going for an MBA abroad. One of the reasons I chose to do the MSc in economics is that I am really interested in economics, and I think it is a much more technical and realistic field to pursue rather than the sort of scientific or scientistic fields of accounting and finance that most MBAs end up pursuing. As you can probably tell by this long-winded way of speaking, I'm not the best person at marketing, communications, and sales. So I'm naturally not drawn to those positions as well. So it would leave me to do a consulting job, which again I have ethical and moral dilemmas about doing if I went down the MBA route. However, I'm not sure that at this stage of my career I would like to take a pay cut for my values, which is to say that had I become a good top tier consultant and would be drawing, let's say, a 35 or 40 lakh salary, and right now I'm going to be drawing maybe a same salary but in UK pounds, I'm not sure is a worthwhile trade-off for me to make. So yes, so there was an option of doing a job, there was an option of doing a pre-doc, there is an option of doing a PhD, and there is an option of going back home. I interned with Tata Sons in the summer of 2024, which is this year, and I pushed very hard for a position in their Tata Administrative Services. I've been lucky to be given an opportunity to interview, which though is not what I had expected, because what I had been communicated or what had been communicated to me by the HR team was that if I was going to be taken, which was always an unlikely scenario, it would be taken. I would be taken directly, since my markers or criteria were already made available to them. Right, so there are a few eventualities that I have, and having had no clear thoughts about that, I believe probably not in the concept of fate or destiny as such so strongly. Perhaps a discussion for another day. But I do believe in the in the stochastic process, right, which could be an approximation to fate. So the idea was, and this is something that I came to at the beginning of the summer this year, is that I will apply to very edge case scenarios. Only to the places that I would go to in a heartbeat, right? In those places where I do not have this mental calculus of, doubting myself or second guessing what my past decisions have been, and not betraying, what the efforts of my younger self. So in that sense, I've applied to the scenario that I had laid out for myself first, which I knew was going to be unlikely, is to get an admit from a top 5 econ PhD, and I would also include business schools in that, because my interest seems to be well aligned, and for long-term job opportunities, they seem to be equally well placed. Second was to, otherwise I would have also applied for very, very strong job positions. Now, of course, these aren't world altering in the sense of what I'd like to be doing eventually in terms of public policy or anything like that. But these certainly do at least compensate you well enough from the London point of view. Again, not at the premium that you would have wanted. So if a good job in India gives you 30, a good job here starts you off at 60. Right, so which is like a 2x increase, but the cost of living here is much, much more than the 2x that I would be staying in India. So it is still a de facto pay cut, but given that you could have some lateral movements and some prestige associated with working in a foreign office, I thought that might be worthwhile. However, that does not seem to be materializing this year, and I could be wrong, and we'll come to know in a few more weeks or months. But my applications, though I felt were stronger this year than they were for my summer application last year, I have been unsuccessful in converting any one of them. And to be fair, I wasn't offered any interviews till now. In my mind, it is unlikely that such an offer will be forthcoming, just from these applications that I've made this year. But my initial stages, I think, were much more thought about and much more deliberate than they were last year, in which case I did get a interview from JPM last year for their summer role. So, this is also perhaps a good signal to say that I may not thrive in that field, but which is a possibility, again, out of my hubris. I don't want to consider too deeply. But it very well could be a signal of that. Now, well, the next option is that, okay, if you don't get a PhD, or you don't get a job, then you look at the options that you have. Maybe you don't get a 60,000 job, maybe you get a 40,000 job, maybe you don't get a top 5 PhD, maybe you get a top 10 PhD or a top 15 PhD, or in the other case, apply for a pre-doc. given my profile, I think I'm a very good candidate for, and this has been told to me in no uncertain words, I'm a good candidate for a top pre-doc this year. So I might apply for them as well as the course progress. Or as time goes by, and I might think that that is a good idea for me to do. Again, you're taking a significant pay cut, and in my mind, you're not really expanding your horizon beyond a PhD at that point. You're really boxing in your options, though people have told me otherwise. It just doesn't seem to me to be the case. If a fresh graduate out of university cannot get interviews in some of the leading banks or in some of the leading jobs, straight out of college for the graduate scheme, it seems unlikely to me that people would be willing to take a lateral transfer into a boutique or a bulge bracket from mid-tier markets, or would discount a lateral transfer from a mid-tier to a boutique or a bulge bracket bank in favor of taking somebody with a 1 year of RA experience with some professor at some place doing something which is perhaps orthogonal to what the bank is doing, outside of perhaps some economic consulting job, but that is neither here nor there. Right, so, and I'm also going to be applying for TAS. Now, it seems to me that by my nature, I am a very critical and what my dad says, my dad used a word, it wasn't complacency, it said that despondency, right? So I think I am been usually despondent and critical, and don't really take my achievements whenever they do arise too seriously, because I always think that there is something else to be got, and which is perhaps not the healthiest manner of thinking. However, given that that is my nature, I find issues with all three of these approaches, or all four of these approaches, as the case was, and I will try and outline them right now. First, with the PhDs. It is a very, very edge case that I will, sorry about that. It is a very, very edge case that I will get top 5 admit, or leave alone top 10 admit, because regardless of how good I think my profile is, the people who are selecting it have to have a good idea of what my profile is. And even if it is a good profile, it's still an edge case because thousands of people apply and they'll take like 15 or 20. Right, so even if you are very good, you have to not only be good, you have to be amongst the top 20 profiles that they read, or are not filtered out on some arbitrary criteria that the selectors have at that time. So that is a very risky bet. The other one is I had perhaps been too optimistic about my job prospects here in the UK, and that clearly, with hindsight, does not seem to have happened. And I do not at this moment possess the motivation, or do not think it is worth my time to try and apply to, let's say, 10 or 15 jobs every week, given that I've already applied to about 30 or 40 positions, and spend 2 or 3 hours, doing interviews and going through the whole rigmarole. Because if I wasn't very good at them then, I'm probably not going to be that great at them now. And most of the places where I would have loved to work or would have been fine working have already gone. So these would be no-name brands or something where I could learn. But that particularly isn't what I'm looking for at this moment. If you're taking a pay cut and you're taking your exit options are uncertain, etc., then it compels me to stay in London, which is a place that I would not want to stay in unless there is a compelling reason for me to stay here. Being compelled to stay here and having a compelling reason, at least in my mind, seem to be distinct concepts. Well, then there's the question of the RAs, which I've talked about. You're really boxing yourself in. And the fourth is the question about hopefully converting the Tata offer, which I am again pessimistic about, because having been told that you would be taken in directly, if at all, to now having to interview seems to me to be a soft refusal of what was initially promised. Let me just plug in and I will continue. Right. I also need to work on my speaking voice because I think it's become quite a bit raspy for some reason. Excuse me. I don't ever remember it being as raspy, but I guess we have to deal with it as it goes along. I feel that one of the major concerns that I have, apart from, well, there is confusion all around. I can put it that way. I don't exactly know what to think. I am sort of in this to try and figure out, what exactly is it that I can do. I want to test my own limits, because in the past I have surprised myself, and one of the biggest regrets I think I have is to not test exactly what the limits of my own self are. What exactly is it that I can achieve, at which point I can say I've given it my all, and this is what it is, so I've left everything on the table. Because at that point I think I can then concentrate on saying, okay, this is exactly how far I think I can get, and now it is a question about calibrating approaches and doing marginal changes, rather than having the question of aiming too low. I'd rather aim too high and fail, and then know exactly where I stand, rather than aim too low and live a life of mediocrity. Because not that there's anything wrong with mediocrity, and not that I would want to presume that I'm not mediocre, but it is that you shouldn't take anything at face value, is what I'm saying. In the past, having surprised myself with different performances, and always being in a position to set a higher standard for yourself after each milestone, I think there is something, it would be a disservice if I did not maximally utilize my potential. I really should start keeping notes for this video diary, I think. And right, so let me also try and take you through what my routine is, and how I am unhappy on that front as well. I think I sleep too late, I sleep too less, I wake up just in the nick of time, I'm late for most appointments and most lectures, not by a lot, but not by a trivial amount either. I think it would be best served. I would be best served if I could keep appointments and be a credible student, and be, I think, 10% more disciplined in my manner to cut things too finely. I think there is something to be said about not always optimizing, because if you always try to optimize everything, the margins for errors are so small because everything is stacked in together. There is something to be said about keeping buffer zones and treating some things with a bit more credibility and a bit more importance than you would otherwise give them. For instance, if I have to go meet a professor at 12, leave your house at 11:30. Doesn't matter if you get there 5 or 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early. It's better to be there early rather than to be 5 minutes late. Is something that I haven't been following till now, but I think it would be better for me if I did that. Second, I think I need to expand my vocabulary. I try and use the same kind of words over and over again. I need to interact with different kinds of people, and my video diary is hopefully an attempt at doing that, is that I can substitute real face-to-face interaction with peers who may or may not always be available for such discussions, but to also clear my thinking. What I've noticed is often in many conversations I will bring up the similar points, not to the same people of course, but I think it would be a good test for me to see what the extent of my creativity and original thinking are, if I can make the same case with different arguments, so to say. I can make a bold claim here. I think that I am well placed in my class, as far, perhaps not intellect is concerned, but as far as ability to work hard, with some amount of quantitative knowledge and lack of math phobia, having taken MA 212 last year. I think if I applied myself and, like I said, I was 10% more disciplined, I could really achieve a lot more things. I've been playing well on my basketball team, but not well enough to make it to the second team, evidently, and still stuck on the third team. I've been doing okay in my classes, though off late I have been dozing off more and more. It is important to sit through things which your mind doesn't want to be there. These are the micro changes that Atomic Habit talks about, to be locked in and give it your all, and understand that you're here for a purpose, and that purpose is not to surf Instagram or WhatsApp while the lecture is happening, regardless of how boring or non-intuitive you might think it is. You're here at a great cost, not only to yourself in terms of time, but also to your parents in terms of money costs and time away from them, and to your girlfriend, and to so many things. right? I think it is only fair to demand yourself to be the best you can be. Anything less of that, I think, you might want to reconsider. The last thing that I'll say is that it has become evidently clear to me that I am not a party person. It is perhaps too late for me to try and be the life of the party, or to be the center of attention, or to be a person who can thrive well in group dynamics, or to have like tons of friends who are, staying back after class discussing things, etc., etc. Having tried that numerous times in the past, I don't think that I am particularly suited for those kinds of interactions. I respect the people who are, but I think it is time that I understand that is not your forte, and cut your losses, in the sense that don't go in with any expectations. You're not going to be. It is clear to me that you're not going to be here and make lifelong friends, right? And that is fine. Like you don't have to feel bad about that. All I'm trying to say is that, knowing what you know, it would be foolish for you to chase things which you know you're not good at, or that you're not suited to be good at. I would much rather that you devote your energies into perfecting things that you know, rather than chasing, the attention or approval or this thing of your peers. Man desires not only to be loved but to be lovely is a good sentiment, and one that I completely agree with. But I would rather that you try to be lovely rather than to be loved. Think aloud. Don't get too carried away by your emotions. Have a level head. Introspect and meditate. And come and talk to the camera once daily, or as frequently as you like. But it is important for you to listen to what you're saying, and look back in the camera, look back in the mirror, or look back at the video when it's being played, to try and see exactly where you're wrong, right? So there is nothing which is indicating to you that you deserve the places where you have applied to. So you have to also account for the tail event. What are you going to do? Are you going to open up a shop? Are you going to go back to India with your tail between your legs, and 40 lakh rupees later, and a degree afterwards with nothing to show for it? Right? What is it that you're going to do? Your values can only be as expensive as allow you to sustain a household, right? You're not going to be activist on the street. That is very clear. So what is it that you're going to do? Are you going to compromise on the values, the system that you set out to, and write government exams if nothing works out for you because you're a good test taker, so might as well, try and capitalize on that skill, and to hell with values and libertarianism. I think I will end the video series, at least for today. I've rambled on for about half an hour. I don't expect anybody to have heard this, and but you should definitely hear what you have said, and keep coming back, and keep responding to this. But let me leave the video with a poem. Now, which poem? I think to start with, you can't go wrong with If by Sir Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all men doubt. If by Sir Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for the doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being hated, don't give way to hate or being lied about. Don't deal in lies, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you have spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve their turn long after they are gone, and hold on when there is nothing left in you, except the will which says to them, hold on. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much. Did I say this already? If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Let me do one more. When the mind is without fear, by Sir Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. And one more for good luck. I vow to thee, my country, all earthly things above, entire and whole and perfect, the service of my love. The love that asks no question, the love that stands the test, that lays upon the altar the dearest and the best. The love that never falters, the love that pays the price, the love that makes undaunted the final sacrifice. And there is another country I've heard of long ago, most dear to them that love her, most great to them that know. We may not count her armies, we may not see her king. Her fortress is a faithful heart, her pride is suffering. And soul by soul and silently, her shining bounds increase. Her ways are ways of gentleness, and all her paths are peace. Thank you, and see you next time.